Today we'll study diuretics. So diuretics are the drugs which increase the volume of urine. So they increase the amount of urine or volume of urine, and there will be elimination of larger volume of urine than normal. Okay. So these drugs act on the kidney and their action on the cells of kidney. The cells of kidney are the nephrons. Okay, on the nephrons they act, and to know this better we must first study the physiology of urine formation, and we know the rate of excretion. Here we can say rate of urinary excretion is equal to rate of glomerular filtration plus rate of tubular secretion minus rate of selective reabsorption. Okay, and the glomerular filtration rate is about 125 ml per minute, which is equal to 180 liter per day. So glomerular filtration occurs about 180 liters per day, plus there is also some tubular secretion. But if we say the rate of urinary excretion, it is 1.5 to 2 liters per day, and if we say on average it will be 1.8 liter per day. That means if total urine formed is 180 liters, only 1% is coming as urine, the rest is getting reabsorbed. So 99% is reabsorbed. So when we want to increase the urine volume, we can target all these three. But if we can target this and even only 1% we able to inhibit the reabsorption, then it will be 2%. So double the amount of the urine will be formed. So most of the diuretics they act on this. The diuretics inhibit the rate of selective reabsorption. So to know the mechanism of reabsorption, we have to first know about the nephron. So let us draw a diagram of the nephron. So nephron, the structure is like this, and here we have the afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole. And so we have the total structure we can divide it into. So first this is our glomerulus or Bowman's capsule. Okay, and here the afferent arteriole is having small diameter, and the efferent arteriole is having afferent arteriole is having large diameter and efferent arteriole is having small diameter. So there is a pressure created here, and there is filtration of uh, the content, so we call as glomerular filtration, and here we have the urine because of glomerular filtration. But there are certain molecules like protein bound drugs, and they they cannot be excreted through filtration. So from these capillaries they come to the extracellular fluid, and from it goes to the tubular cells, then from the tubular cells it goes to the lumen. So if you draw a diagram like this, so we have the blood vessels here, the capillary, then there is extracellular fluid, then we have the tubular cell, then we have the lumen, this is the lumen. Okay, so we have blood, then extracellular fluid, then the tubular cell, then we have the lumen. Okay, so if you draw this type of diagram, suppose we take a cross section of this, so this will be like this, and this inside this there is urine, so this is your lumen, and this is divided into tubular cells, so the and here we have the blood vessels, so blood is there here, which is the extracellular fluid, and this is the tubular cell. So some protein bound drugs cannot be excreted by glomerular filtration. They are excreted through this pathway. From blood it will come to the extracellular fluid, from extracellular fluid it will come to the tubular cell, from the tubular cell it will come to the lumen. So it seems as if it is secreted from the tubular wall. So this is called tubular secretion. So one process is your glomerular filtration, and second process is your tubular secretion. And just the reverse of tubular secretion, that means from lumen to tubular cell, from tubular cell to extracellular fluid, from extracellular fluid to blood. So this process is your reabsorption. We know absorption is the process where the drug enters the blood circulation. So when you say reabsorption, means again while getting excreted, it is again coming back to, suppose this is the blood, so it is again coming back to the blood, so it is the reabsorption, and it is occurring for selective substances, so it is called selective reabsorption. So if we want to target, if we want to target the diuretics, we use the diuretics, then it will target the rate of selective reabsorption. Even if 1% of it is blocked, then the urine amount will be almost doubled. Okay. Now, to know about the diuretics, we should know another concept, that is osmosis. What is osmosis? First, let us know what is osmosis. And osmosis, there is a process called diffusion. So diffusion uh, from high concentration, there is flow of the substance to low concentration through the concentration gradient. So from high concentration something goes to low concentration because of the difference in concentration or concentration gradient, we call it as diffusion. But in osmosis what happens, the two things are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. Here we can say if the membrane is permeable, it is a permeable membrane. So solute substances from high concentration, it can go to the low concentration. But if we use a semi-permeable membrane, what will happen? The solute cannot enter the semi-permeable membrane. Only solute cannot enter. Only the solvent can enter. Suppose we have a compartment. Here we have the high concentration and here we have the low concentration. So according to the law of equilibrium, this high concentration and low concentration, both of them, they will try to maintain equilibrium, means both sides the concentration will be same. How the concentration will be same? If some of the solutes here will go this side, this will become this concentration will increase here and the concentration here will decrease, and there will be both will be same. Okay. If we use a semi-permeable membrane like here, if we use a semi-permeable membrane, so that from the high concentration the solute cannot enter, solute cannot go, so then how both the sides will have same concentration? In that case, what will happen? If the solvent here will go to this side, then what will happen? This side it will be diluted, and since solvent will go from this side to this side, so this will be more concentrated. So both sides the concentration will have same. So that happens in osmosis. In case of osmosis, there is a semi-permeable membrane. So suppose here we have high concentration, here we have low concentration. So ideally, from high concentration the solute should go to the low concentration, so that the both will have same concentration. But because of the semi-permeable membrane, if these two compartments are separated by a semi-permeable membrane, then what will happen? The solute cannot enter through the semi-permeable membrane, only solvent can enter. So here solvent will move from low concentration to high concentration. Okay, so solvent will move from low to high, because if solvent will move from this low side to higher side, this side will be more concentrated and this side will be diluted. So here the concentration will come down, here the concentration will increase, and both the sides will have, according to the law of equilibrium, both the sides will have same concentration. So osmosis is nothing but the flow of solvent from low concentration to high concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. So this concept is used now. So to know this, let us see. So suppose say this is the cross section of a tubule of nephron, and here we have the tubular cells, and here we have the blood. So when we say reabsorption, means suppose say the ion sodium is moving into the tubular cell, then from tubular cell it goes to the blood. Okay, so it is called reabsorption. And this membrane behaves as a semi-permeable membrane. So this is a tubular so suppose this is the tube of nephron, we are taking a cross section of it, so it looks like this. So, and this is a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so what we say, if there is a semi-permeable membrane, then there will be movement of solvent. Here the solvent is water, so the movement of water from low concentration to high concentration. Okay, so we have to increase the concentration of the ions inside the lumen. If we increase the concentration of ions in the lumen, what will happen? From low concentration to high concentration, the water will flow. So from all these tubular cells, water will flow into the lumen, and inside the lumen the urine volume will increase. So all the diuretics, what they are causing? They are increasing the concentration of ions like sodium, potassium, chloride. All these ions concentration is increased inside the lumen, so that osmosis can occur and water will flow into the lumen, and the water content will increase inside the lumen and the urine volume increases. Okay, so different parts. So the different parts of the nephron. So now this is first, it is called proximal tubule. The first part is your proximal tubule. So it is if it is just bent, then it is called convoluted. So proximal convoluted tubule. Then we have the loop of Henle. Loop of Henle. Loop of Henle. So here we have the thick limb and thin limb. So thick limb, so this will be more thin. So this is thin part and this is the thick part. So thick descending, thin ascending, and thick ascending. So this is ascending part and this is descending part. So this loop of Henle can be divided into thick descending, thin ascending, thick ascending. Then this is the distal part, so distal convoluted tubule, and finally collecting duct where several distal convoluted tubules are connected. So in these four areas there are different mechanisms of reabsorption. The mechanism of reabsorption differs from one part to another. So in proximal convoluted tubule, what happens? Let us draw a diagram here. In proximal convoluted tubule, there is absorption of sodium. Okay, there is absorption of sodium in exchange of hydrogen. Okay, in exchange of hydrogen, and this hydrogen is generated from carbonic acid. Water plus carbon dioxide forms H2CO3, carbonic acid, and this H2CO3 divides into H plus and HCO3 minus, bicarbonate, and this water and carbon dioxide in presence of carbonic anhydrase forms carbonic acid, and then carbonic acid breaks down to H plus. This H plus is exchanged in place of sodium, so sodium reabsorption occurs. So we have to increase the concentration of sodium here now, then we have to inhibit the sodium reabsorption. So if sodium reabsorption has to be inhibited, that means we have to inhibit the generation of H plus. So drugs like carbonic anhydrase inhibitors like acetazolamide, dichlorphenamide, so dichlorphenamide, these drugs are carbonic anhydrase inhibitors and inhibit the generation of H plus, so inhibit the reabsorption of sodium, and now the sodium concentration in lumen increases. So this creates osmosis. So an isoosmotic equivalent of water will flow, water flows from tubular cells to lumen. So the urine amount increases in the lumen, so that is called diuresis. In this way, the drugs acting, these are the drugs acting on the proximal convoluted tubule, and they act. Similarly, in loop of Henle, suppose this is your lumen, let us draw a diagram like this, and this is your blood or your tubular cell, first tubular cell, then we have the blood. Okay, so here we have the mechanism of sodium potassium chloride, sodium potassium and 2 chloride. So there will be a reabsorption of sodium potassium chloride, and this is called sodium potassium chloride co-transport. Sodium potassium chloride co-transport. Okay, and what happens if we can inhibit these? The drugs are called loop diuretics. The loop diuretics like furosemide, okay, furosemide, if and itacryonic acid. These loop diuretics inhibit sodium potassium chloride co-transport, so the concentration of sodium potassium chloride increases. They increase the concentration of sodium, potassium and chloride. So there will be osmosis and there will be flow of solvent from the tubular cells into the lumen, and there will be diuresis. The same thing happens in case of thiazide diuretics. There is only two ions, so this is the lumen, sodium and chloride. So this is the tubular cells, and here you have the blood. So thiazide diuretics acting on the distal convoluted tubule, they inhibit the thiazide diuretics like hydrochlorothiazide, chlorthalidone, indapamide, bendrofluazide, zipamide. All these drugs, they inhibit sodium chloride co-transport and they increase the concentration of sodium and chloride, and this increases the concentration of sodium and chloride. So this is a semi-permeable membrane. So here there will be movement of water from the tubular cells into the lumen, and there will be diuresis. And the final one is your collecting duct. In the collecting duct we have a different mechanism. In the collecting duct, suppose this is the tubular cell, so this is the lumen, and in the collecting duct there is mechanism for reabsorption of sodium by sodium channels. So sodium channels there is reabsorption, and in exchange of sodium there is excretion of potassium as well as hydrogen. Okay, so this thing is done by a hormone called aldosterone. So we can use aldosterone antagonist. So one type of drug is aldosterone antagonist. So in the collecting duct, antagonist like spironolactone, which inhibits the reabsorption of sodium and also inhibits the excretion of potassium and hydrogen. Okay, and the second group is the sodium channel blockers. Like amiloride, triamterone. Okay, these two group of drugs, they act on the collecting duct, and one group is inhibiting the sodium channel and the other group is inhibiting the actions of aldosterone competitively, and there will be increase in concentration of sodium, and hence there will be osmosis and flow of water from the tubular cells into the lumen, which causes diuresis. Okay, so this is all about the mechanism of action of all these drugs, and for side effects, to know the side effects, this is again useful. When the sodium is reabsorbed in the collecting duct, there is excretion of potassium and hydrogen. So the acid base balance is also regulated here. And here, if we inhibit the sodium reabsorption, so there will be inhibition of excretion of potassium as well as hydrogen. So the side effects here will be metabolic acidosis and hyperkalemia. Okay, and if that means all the drugs which act on the proximal convoluted tubule or your loop loop of Henle or your distal convoluted tubule, then finally they will try to get reabsorbed here. So suppose thiazide diuretics. So thiazide diuretics, they inhibit the reabsorption of sodium and chloride. So all those sodium they will try to get reabsorbed in the collecting duct. So when they will get reabsorbed, there will be loss of potassium and hydrogen. So thiazide diuretics as well as your loop diuretics, these two drugs have side effect because the sodium, maximum sodium will try to get reabsorbed in the collecting duct. So there will be loss of potassium and hydrogen. So these two group of drugs, they have side effect of hypokalemia and metabolic alkalosis. So you can see, the thiazide diuretics here, they inhibit the reabsorption of sodium and chloride. So this sodium now it will try to get absorbed in the get absorbed in the collecting duct. So when the sodium is reabsorbed in the collecting duct, there will be loss of potassium and hydrogen. So loss of potassium causes hypokalemia, the potassium concentration decreases, and since there is loss of acid, so there will be metabolic alkalosis. So the thiazide diuretics as well as your loop diuretics, both of them have side effects of metabolic alkalosis and your hypokalemia. Okay, and in this case we can see the first group which acts on the proximal convoluted tubule. Here sodium is reabsorbed in exchange of hydrogen. So when we inhibit the sodium reabsorption, there is also inhibition of excretion of your hydrogen. So here the side effect is metabolic acidosis. Okay, so acidosis will be there, and in the urine will be more alkaline. So alkaline urine will be there. So metabolic acidosis occurs in case of drugs acting on proximal convoluted tubule and collecting duct, and metabolic alkalosis occurs in case of drugs acting on thiazide diuretics and loop diuretics. Okay, and loop diuretics. And this is all. Thank you.